Well, thank you, Mario, and thank you, everybody, for joining us, either live or in the recorded session. So we're going to cover a huge amount of content in a short period of time because I want to give you an overview of 30 years of work and a 7-hour course in 35 minutes. So we're going to go quickly. And so just hang on. So if you say, hey, you went too fast, well, don't worry about that. You can go back and replay it or come back and talk to Mario or, go online and learn more. Okay, so let's just kind of take a look here. This session is really for you. And there's probably two sides of the ledger here. People that are really looking at what their life direction is and or helping other people with their life direction. So are you living on purpose? And if you're not, could you help others to do the same if you're unclear? And my suggestion is probably not. So this session is based on my book, The Quest for Purpose, which is also a full online course. And so these are just some of the key components that we're going to cover in the next few minutes: self-awareness, meaning before purpose, mindset, character traits. And then our life leaves clues. And if I'm confused or uncertain about what I'm supposed to do in my life, which I was at, I'll tell you my story here in a minute, then this is what the system does and helps you to go on that journey. So there's a whole journal and an online course that goes with it. CRG, which is my company, we've now been around for 45 years. I've been connected to the company since 1990, and I've been professionally involved with this area of focus for over 34 years. I've done over 10,000 hours of coaching, 3,000 presentations, 500 articles, and then this is just some assessments and courses that we have. So here's my story. I actually grew up on a dairy farm. I'm the third generation firstborn male. And so do you think there was any pressure for me to stay on the farm? Absolutely. So here's proof of my 4-H picture. And I think this is 1969, and this is now 1975 or 76. And here is the family dairy farm. And then I went so much to actually have my own dairy farm. So what are you doing in the professional development field? Well, some of the things that led me towards it, of course, you grow up, you have all this background. And of course, when I left the dairy farm, what did my family say? You were a betrayer, you're a traitor, because we did all of this for you. So lots of people are going down directions in life because of the influences around them. I had a grade 9 English teacher who was from the UK, nothing against the UK. I'm from Canada, but the company that I own is international and we operate in 30 countries. But in grade 9, she said to me, you're not going to amount to anything, Ken, because you can't read or write. Well, later on, when I was doing my master's degree and started to write these books, the invention of, I know I look very, very young, is that the invention of the computer in this little red line revealed that I had a learning disability. And dyslexia made it very difficult for me to read or write back then. So now I've written 4 million words of content, 4 books, going on to my 5th, a dozen assessments, 500 articles. And you would have never convinced me, even in my mid-20s, that I would be an author. I always knew that I would be a speaker because I don't have to spell the words that I'm articulating. However, the creation of the computer, all of a sudden, I went into a whole different direction of being able to help others. So what's our purpose? So what is your purpose? So my purpose is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose in either communicating in a seminar or webinar like this, or writing different items, and also to really connect with my family. As I grow older, it's really connecting with my kids, and I'm just blessed with an amazing group of family around us that we're able to work together. So if it's your purpose to live your purpose, but if you're anywhere in the career development field, then your purpose is to help others to live theirs. So how do we do that? So let me quickly go through an overview, a framework that's based on the quest for purpose for you, to help you with yourself, but then also to help others to do the same thing. So when we think about purpose before career, which is what we position, there's a study done in Canada, and I know you can't read this, but I'll just give you what this means with these arrows. There was a negative correlation between kids and students in high school and college and university in career clarity when they talk to career counselors. In other words, I'm not trying to diss our profession because I've been in this for over 30 years, but the more that students talk to career counselors, the more confused they were and the less clarity they had, because I believe that we have a broken system is how we think about it. Their number one sort of connection was with their parents that really saw them through it. However, on the other side, parents can be really driving us and individuals into different directions. 67% of parents want their students to go to university. And really, where do I even use my Bachelor of Arts of Science degree? And interesting, one of the number one sort of places that there is a shortage of labor right now is in the trades, and only 2% of parents want their kids to go to trade school. Here's my wife, Brenda. I was doing our certification, which on all our 12 or 14 assessments in Singapore. And Singapore has one of the top 5 GDPs in the world. And at that time, this was 2015, only 5% of the workforce were engaged. So it was one of the highest paid, but people were not enjoying what they were doing. I also want to cause a little bit of controversy is that I believe that interest inventories are dead. And not just, yes, they can help us, but there's 40,000 job titles. How can I figure out from an interest inventory that has 100 what I really want to do? And I want to suggest to us that our number one quest is to be self-aware, to understand what are my strengths, what do I bring to the marketplace, what are my interests, and the only person that can verify that is you and or your client that you're working with, the student you're working with directly. Now, one of my colleagues in my podcast, Secrets of Success, was on air for 7 years. I did 300 episodes, and I did a lot of New York Times bestsellers, including Tasha. So Tasha wrote the book Insights. And in her book, she said, what percentage of people believe that they know themselves? In other words, they understand who they are and they think that they know themselves and how they're perceived sort of in the relationships around them. And so her research showed 95% of people believe that they know themselves. Then she sent her students out and says, okay, how many people do they have where their comments and the comments of the people around them are congruent? In other words, my perception of self is equal to or congruent to the people around me. And what I say about myself is how other people experience me. Do you know that that was only 10%? That means that 85% of people are delusional. They don't even know that they don't know that they don't know. And so as a result of that, our quest and our goal here as an organization now for over 40 years is to help people with self-awareness that leads to self-management, that leads to self-mastery. When the Dr. late Wayne Dwyer, he said, in awareness, all things are possible. If I don't know that I don't know that I don't know, how am I going to change anything or do anything different? And the sad state of affairs in our world right now is only 10% of the population really realize or are living on purpose or believe that they're doing their calling, their assignment, whatever word you want to call. And one of my colleagues, Brenda Bouchard, wrote, the New York Times bestseller, High Performance Habits. The number one habit of high performance is clarity. They know that they know that they know who they are, what they bring, and what that means to their entire environment, relationships, career, leadership, friendships, whatever it might be. Now, some of you might not know this book because this was a few generations ago, but it was in print for 50 years. What Color's Your Parachute? Really to figure out who you are. Now, two of my closest friends who have now just recently passed away, Dick Bowles with his wife, and he's the author of What Color's Your Parachute, and Dick Nodell, both in California, were having dinner together. And between the two of them, they had 80 years in the career development field. And I asked them, I said, with all the programs, with all the possibilities, with all the options in the marketplace, why do we have 70, 80, even 90% of the population not engaged at work, not living on purpose? And in unison, both of them responded, and the reason why is because people have not been willing to do the work. You know what? It takes effort to develop clarity. You can't do life on a microwave. You have to be able to kind of lean into, who am I? What do I really bring? What do I dislike as much as what I do like? What are other people really investigating and being curious about their life? One of my colleagues, Dr. Zimmerman, put these images together, and he goes around the globe doing cultural change. So when we look at this image of the square wheels, what do the square wheels represent? For most people, it'll be frustration or how we've always done it. This is how we've thought about it. Well, who's the person in the front? Is that the career counselor? Is that the leader of the organization? And then what are the people in the back of the wagon? What do they see? They just see the back of the wagon, right? So a lot of times now, what's in the center of the wagon? This is obvious. It's not an intelligence test. It's a metaphor for get us to think. Is the round wheels are there to be able to put on, but what do the people in the back of the wagon see? They only see the back of the wagon. Now, I've been in this profession for a long time. And for many years, have you ever met somebody where the answer to their dilemma, their problem, their issue, their challenge is obvious, but they don't get it? Yes or yes, right? So I would get frustrated with these individuals on the back of the wagon. And I said, hey, listen, idiot, the round wheels are right there. But what I discovered in my immaturity, that's not what my job is. My job is to help them to see the round wheels. Whose job is it to put it on? Theirs, right? Whose job is it to put the round wheels on in your life? You, of course. I'm here to really kind of stir up some thinking for you, for yourself and those that you serve. But there's nobody here, not Mario, not me, that can put these round wheels on for you. They're just there for you to put on yourself. So what do the round wheels represent? New ways of thinking, new opportunities, changing how we approach things. We really believe in a strengths mindset, so that developing my weaknesses is highly overrated. I want to play for the most part to my strengths. Now, I don't want to use my weaknesses as an excuse for my behavior, but I want to be able to play to my strengths in terms of my interests, gifts, talents, personality. So this is our model that we put together about developing the whole person. A lot of times people want to go on this quest to be able to figure out who they are, what they're supposed to do, but it's too myopic, meaning you need to have a broad stroke and a holistic model that captures the entirety of who you are. So let me just quickly go around these 6 boxes, and then I'm going to give you the framework of the quest for purpose, which is there's 2 parts or multiple parts to getting clear about who you are. So we are an assessment company, but we also believe in the narrative side where I, journal and discover, and that's the quest for purpose process. And we merge and kludge those 2 together, be able to help people to get to clarity. And I went through this process myself. In 1989, I joined the National Speakers Association as a new speaker, and I spent 6 months being coached by the individual who created this system that I'm going to frame out for you. He passed away 2 decades ago, and I just expanded and enhanced it significantly since that time. But I leaned in for 6 months to say, I knew I was supposed to speak, but about what to who. So let's go through this factors model very quickly. So the red box is personal style, what many other people would call personality. So all of us have a natural predisposition, how we want to perceive, approach, and interact with the environment. And we need to know what that is, because that's going to influence all our choices, the roles or responsibilities that we're going to fulfill. But that's different measure than interests, gifts, and talents. I don't believe in using personality assessments to determine the career path. I think that's actually discriminatory, because it doesn't measure interests, gifts, and talents. That's separate measures. You look at the center is biophysical factors. If I didn't get any sleep last night, then my ability to be attentive or energized or feel confident or even like what I'm doing could be significantly hindered because of that dynamic. Self-worth levels. You and I have the same personality or personal style, one with high self-worth, one with low self-worth. In high school, my self-worth was very low because I was the eldest of a very strict family, and my family really didn't equip me to stand in the confidence of who I am. Environmental systems, the bottom left-hand corner. So we just have all people from all across the country and the world on this session and in this session. And so how I perceive things, if I'm in LA with Mario, if I'm in Alabama, if I'm New York, if I'm in Montana, I'm going to perceive things differently if I'm in Vancouver, if I'm in Hong Kong, if I'm in Afghanistan, if I'm in South Africa. So these environmental systems are shaping. So this is this nature and nurture. We are both. So they're shaping how I think about things. If we look at the blue one, social teachers and my core values. What would it mean if you could make the right decision every time? And we suggest to you that this is possible if you know what your core behavioral and internal and external values are, and then you base your decisions on those, then you would make the right decision most of the time. And the right-hand side in purple, excuse me, this is around any kind of emotional event that creates a trigger, both positive and negative in your life. So for me, high school was very negative, but I also was part of a farming community called 4-H, and it was very positive. So even though it was youth and at the same time in my life, we believe in what we call situational self-worth, but then also these emotional anchors that will hinder or produce positives for you either way. Now, there's one more in the center, and this is where we come from, and a lot of books really don't cover this, and that's spirituality. And here's what we mean by this, is your belief system matters. And somebody says, well, listen, I don't believe in anything. Well, you can't believe in nothing because nothing is something with human beings. In both of these books, now one of them written by a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, is they both sort of avoid this conversation around spirituality and what it means for my purpose. And I'm going to suggest to you that it's foundational, is that I'm not here to tell you what it is, even though I have a complete bias and I believe in my bias, is that all of us have a bias around that, is that if you believe in nothing, that's going to mean something in terms of your decisions. If you believe in something, what is it? What does that mean to you? And that meaning becomes before purpose. So this is a foundational thing, is what you believe or don't believe is going to highly influence what you want to do or not want to do, and the value system that you're going to drive. Now, one of my colleagues, Dr. Andy, wrote the book Thinking, and he said these are the 5 questions he found that society wants to ask of society and of themselves. What's the meaning of life? Does God exist? Do all religions lead to God? Why is there evil? Is there life after death? So if you want to find out more, then Andy's got a website called The Human Project. But I want to encourage you that if we're thinking about purpose in life, then that is foundational. So now let's just go through some of what we call are the belief systems around the quest for purpose. And this is all based in our online course if you're interested in that in the future. First of all, we believe that motivation is a myth. What do you mean motivation is a myth? Everybody talks about are you motivated? We believe that interests compel or draw or energize you. Hopefully it's evident. I've been doing this thing for 30 years. I have one workshop I've done 1,000 times. I just conducted it again, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was as passionate about it now as 1,000 workshops ago. So interest actually draws. So if you really love golf and somebody says, listen, it's a beautiful day outside, the sun's shining, your best friends want to go golfing with you, you don't have to be motivated to go do that. You're drawn into. So interests and really compel and draw and energize us rather than I need to motivate. So we don't believe in motivation really as a purest sense in how it's taught. The other thing is we believe that your life has a certain theme. So it might change form, but not content. I think about this profession. When I got into this profession in 1989, there actually wasn't even internet. This ability to do a webinar or a Zoom recording or a Zoom webinar, that didn't even exist. I actually commuted from the West Coast of North America to the East Coast for a year, every single week on an airplane, because we didn't even have email. So the form has changed on how we do our business. Now I do most of my stuff virtually. All our assessments are online. When I bought the company 22 years ago, we were only in print. So the format is changing and just the dynamics of the world. And now everybody, of course, is talking about artificial intelligence and what that's going to do, those things. So we believe that sort of the primary nature of who you are, for the most part, does not change for you. I have 2 parts. I have a very much outdoor side where I want to engage, and that's that farmer side and in being active and cutting the lawn and doing those kinds of things. And then also really leaning in and supporting and helping others. If my purpose is to help you to live, lead, and work on purpose, then that can take different formats. I will never be an airplane mechanic, because if I am, then several of you will die, that for sure. So I'm not that good at it. So again, we want to progress in it. Life leaves clues. I want to encourage that many times what people are not really paying attention to the nuances, the feelings, the emotions, the triggers, the responses that we have to certain events. So what you like and what you dislike is very, very important as you try to determine what you want to do for the rest of your life. And even at my age, there's jobs that aren't even invented yet that I potentially could do in 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years. Think about, fiber optic repair person didn't even exist 25 years ago. Now we're talking about artificial intelligence and how that might draw things, just the myriad of different things that will be invented in the next little while that aren't even there yet that I want to consider. So we want to suggest that determining we don't actually have a career, we have expertise and passions that we bring to the marketplace, and where does it platoon or drop into to serve others? The other one I want to caution you is beware of negative gurus. We're at a family event, and my son was 12 at that time, and my aunt asked him, what are you going to do when you grow up? I don't know, adults seem to ask this question. And he said, well, I'm going to have my own band. And my aunt said to him, what are you going to do for a real job? Because you can't make any money having a band. Well, I just about went over there and clocked my 80-year-old aunt for being negative towards my son and his dream. He end up being on a worship band, but now he's a realtor and in business and that side of things. But who am I to limit him? So be very careful. If you're going down pathways that are different than the norm around you, then the likelihood, they're well-meaning, but they actually don't know what they don't know. And please do not get advice from people that have not done the role or responsibility that you're heading towards. If you want to get into your own business, don't ask somebody who's never owned their own business about what I should do to be in my own business. It just makes common sense, but it's not necessarily common purpose. I've mentioned this before. Success requires the ability to say no as well as yes. There's so many shiny objects. One of the challenges today, especially with younger, my kids are 26 and 28, is there's so many shiny objects. You could be distracted in a heartbeat at a nanosecond with 1,000 different possibilities. And so a lot of times, oh, I could earn 100K there or 200K over here, or this kind of six-figure over on this other side. Stop it. The ability to say no is equally important as the ability to say yes. What is you don't want to do? Now, I mentioned this earlier, is that, career is almost a myth, meaning we have this expertise, this idea of, okay, going to an organization and being there for 40 years, that's less and less prevalent now. And that now we're looking at how do I transition, move, and shape and make my life reflective, not from a self-centered point of view, because there's a lot of people that are self-centered and narcissistic out there, but from a self-honoring point of view, that I'm playing to my strengths. I know my strengths are, so I'm self-aware. I play to my strengths, and then I go and I deploy them where they're needed. Now, this book is a New York Times bestseller, just came out last year, called Range. It was interesting. David's research, and it's a pretty heady book. So I have my PhD, but this is a pretty intense book. What he was talking about is that people that have generalist backgrounds are better specialists. So he said that specialists actually don't win. So there's an example in the book where NASA was trying to find a problem to an issue that was going on, and they finally just posted on the internet. And a baker in part of the United States solved their problem from his baking background. It was some kind of chemistry issue. So a lot of times it's not when you say, I'm not a rocket scientist. Well, what he's suggesting is being a rocket scientist actually could be detrimental to you because you're so specialized, you can't see the diversity and different ways of thinking of things. And so Range verified that having a very broad, doing different things. So here I am a speaker, but I also have been a dairy farmer. So what's the two of those got to do? Well, I love the land. I love that side of things, but I also serving people. And it helps me to relate to a myriad of range of educators and CEOs to individuals who have their own businesses in the blue collar space. And I just love them all. And so it's that generalist side that's really equipped me for that. When we think about going forward for our purpose, it's not just our purpose that we need also need to have an attitude that links into it. Mindset is so important. And right now in society, this is so prevalent, is fear is not your friend. It's not. Fear causes you to hinder progress, not make important decisions. It's toxic to your body. It's toxic to your brain. It actually changes changes your brain and your immune system. And so this flexibility within your DNA to respond differently. Do you know that fear actually can cause and is proven to cause cancer and those kinds of diseases? Now, worry can be insidious because there's other people that have worry and they really want to share it with you. The reason I have these race cars is both of my kids were in a high school where they had racing teams. And these cars were doing 100, 110, 125 miles an hour at the end of the track. And my daughter, who is 16, who is not even licensed to drive on the road, it won the championship doing 120 miles an hour with the race car at the end of the track. And my assistant that time said, I would never let my 16-year-old son do that. Well, why is that? Because she was driven on fear. Yes, we had safety items that were taken care of with our kids, but why would you stop your son from enjoying and appreciating life? It's not about being stupid. It's just that you're now using fear and worry as an insidious hindrance to the realization of your son's purpose. So it's so important. Stop it. Stop it now. And just pay attention to what are you worried about? Most of the things we worry about never happen anyways. When I was doing the book, my colleague, Dr. Martin Sigelman, wrote this New York Times bestseller, Learned Optimism. And this is a very good research around how our mindset, how we respond to both positive and negative events affects the outcomes it actually perpetuates itself. So my encouragement is that we want to be optimistic, both when negative things happen and also when positive things happen. And there's a whole section of mindset within the book on it, as well as our online course. In addition to that, before I even get to purpose, I want to talk about character traits, because a lot of other books don't talk about that either. How are you conducting yourself? So we have forgiveness up there on the top. Now, why do I have forgiveness on there? Because in a lot of cases, if I have unforgiveness towards somebody else, I'm not going to realize my purpose. And we don't forgive others for them. We forgive others for us. Because if I've, and many of you have heard this before, and I'm sorry, because it's old school, but unforgiveness is like having you take the poison and expecting the other person to die. So unforgiveness is poison for you, but also forgiveness for yourself. So if you went down a track and you lost some money, or you got in a deal that didn't work outside, or there was a miserable kind of situation, then it's okay to forgive yourself, learn from it, and go from there. One of the other ones is integrity. I was invited to a New York or invitation-only event in New York with Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, the #1 executive coach in the world. And one of the things he was talking about, and even though we get paid significant amounts of sums to coach the top executives in the world, he said, I will not work with a client unless they operate in integrity. Are you doing what you say? And there's just this lack of pervasive integrity in the marketplace. If you operate in integrity, which we're recommending that you do, then you are going to stand out just in itself. Another thing that occurred in this, now there's this entire list here, but it's a third one I want to point out is that gratitude actually improves your well-being. Thankfulness. Are you thankful for what you do have? And that is going to lead towards this purpose side. It's interesting. If I have these opposite of these character traits, then how can I realize my purpose or live it? You're not going to. If I have a negative, pessimistic mindset, how am I going to live my purpose? You're not going to be able to. Now, I have a lot of slides I'm going to flip through here, and we're just going to go about 8 minutes after the hour, Mario, with the rest of the content here, but I'm going to scoot through it fairly quickly, just to give you a framework of some of the other things that we talk about that we also want you to consider if you're thinking about living on purpose, helping others to do the same. So again, we talk about people master life purpose, and journaling is so important. So these questions are in the system, in the book. And by the way, we have a free gift for you. At the end of this session, I'm going to give you a copy, an e-copy of my book, The Quest for Purpose, if you stay, and we'll give you a specific link for you to consider that. So journal. So if we're not paying attention, so journaling is now proven to be able to get out, to confirm, to help clarify what's most important to you. You know, pain is only temporary, but victory is forever. So what are you doing? So one of the things we do in our system is we get people to journal and create an autobiography. So if I ask the question, what's your purpose? The question for most people is just too big. It's just too overwhelming. They don't even know where to start. So what we do is, just like puzzle pieces, we get people to break down the components, pieces, elements of your life that you can affirm that are energizing for you. So these are the categories that would get people to write narratives about and say, okay, where in your life did you have senses, smells, tastes, touches, sounds, sights that were energizing for you? People, places, intellectual experiences, belonging, learning, and paid and unpaid. And you go and you journal pages. So when I did this activity myself in 1989, I journaled over 40 or 50 handwritten pages just from these different contents. So let's just give you a couple of ideas. So it could be flowers, it could be plants, it could be water. This is an image of Maui when we went for a family trip holiday, and it's a bamboo forest just outside of on the island of Maui in Hawaii. We like going to concerts. This is one of the bands we're going to. We have one of the largest air shows in North America just in our city. And my son just got so enamored with airplanes, he joined the local Air Cadets. This is when he was 16 years old. Now he became a glider pilot, won an award to become a licensed pilot. And here he is. He's flying his entire family in the Cessna before he's licensed to drive on the road. And he was one of 8 chosen in the entire company to have all of that covered as a bursary, all because he paid attention to aviation when he was at the air show, that this is something that interests. So again, senses. The other one's places. Where do you like to hang out? Here's Hawaii again for us in Diamond Head, where we're going with our family running. We have a timeshare in Whistler, British Columbia, where the Olympics were held, and it's just beautiful hanging out there. I was speaking in Orlando. We're at the Kennedy Space Station. Here we're in Zihuatanejo in Mexico for our 25th anniversary. Here for our 30th anniversary in the beach in Surfers Paradise in Australia. So what are the places that energize you, that you love being at, to hang out? Experiences, or what do you like doing? The people. This is one of our certifications. What inventions do you like? Where do you like to belong? Where are the sort of like your tribe, the people you like to be with? Learning. What kind of learning? Formal, informal, and now there's so many options like this short webinar, online courses like we offer, assessments, in-person, merged, cohort groups. It doesn't matter. It's all over. And then where do you like to serve? We just recently had a community event. I was asked to be the MC, and I just had an absolute blast having fun serving the community members with all the politicians there. And then what we get you to do in this system is to identify and write a narrative and journal. What's the 10 most important things that have ever happened to you? What are the 10 most exciting things that ever happened? What are the 10 most peaceful things and times that have happened? And then what are your 7 loves and passions that you have in life? Here on my top right-hand corner, I love motorcycling there. I'm just hanging out with some of my tribe there. So we get people, once you've journaled all of this, we get people to tabulate and circle words that are most important to them. So here's an example here. This is actually my handwritten page from 41 years ago. And is it 41? Man, 1989, whatever that is, 30 something. And from circling that, then we get you to calculate what the top words are. And then you distribute that into what we call a keyword pattern, where these 12 words represent the essence of my life. You notice there's not a career here. These are the elements of my life that are important to me. So speaking and traveling, fitness, people, writing, having fun, lifestyle, high energy. These are the words that really work for me. Then we get you to flip this and said, okay, you've done this work. And somebody says, Ken, this is going to take 3 months. And I said, where are you going to be in 3 months if you don't do this work? Where are you going to be in 6 months if you don't do this work? So I took 6 months to do this. And now for the last 30 plus years, I've been engaged in one of the top providers in this space because I'm doing what I'm called to do. Absolutely not. As I said, if I was an airplane mechanic, I would have been fired a long time ago because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So then we get people to write more of a future tense in all these different categories to say, okay, if you wanted to have a life that was perfect in each one of these areas, then what would it look like for you? So we get people to do what we call the quest wheel. And then you develop little micro vision statements that are active tense, meaning active tense is I want to be fit and healthy and high energy. Well, when is that done? It's never done, right? That is there forever for the rest of your life. How I do it will be unique to you. And then when we think from that, said, okay, then what is my ideal? And then we use the word career because we haven't really come up with an alternative word. So when we think about career, then what's your avocation, your calling, your assignment, your space that your zone, if you want to call it that you can then serve and contribute at the highest level? What does that mean? And a lot of times, I remember I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and some individual says, listen, I want to have a business where I can take, a month, a year off and go to Hawaii or go to a sunny place if you don't live there, or travel around the world to Europe, whatever it is. And then they go and they get a 24/7 corner store and they're one of 2 employees. Well, there's a contradiction there. So what I've chosen as a business doesn't line up with what my life goals are. And these need to coexist. I work for myself. I have my own business. I've been a consultant or contractor or speaker for other people for 35 years because I couldn't possibly work for other people. That is the framework that I operate under as a result of that. So it's not right, it's not wrong, but it's only you that can create this. It's only your clients, if you're working with them, that can create this. So we have scooted through at 100 miles an hour these key areas. And of course, I'm just giving you the framework, not the deep dive. The deep dive is possible through our online course or our book. And I just want to share a couple of one research item here, but this is something that's available online where it takes you step by step through all of it. You get the journal, you get a 5 or 6 hour video course. There was a study done of individuals over 70, and they asked the question, if you were to live life over again, what would you do differently? And they came up with 3 things. Number 1 is take more time for myself. And what we mean by that is reflective time. This is not scrolling on Facebook and get caught into reels for 7 hours. What we're talking about is just being reflective in time and maybe reading a book that's contributing and nurturing your souls. Number 2 is take more risks. I coulda, shoulda, woulda taken that position, that role, that responsibility, or bought that property, whatever, sooner instead of waiting, instead of operating in fear. And then last one is commit to a purpose that will last beyond my lifetime, a legacy. What is that for you? What is it that you're going to be known for when it's all said and done and you're gone? And a lot of times people have never really thought about these things. Greatest victory is not winning against people, but winning against self. It's really where we want to take and want to encourage people to take responsibility for the situation that they're in and where they're at. Now, I move through this 100 miles an hour, but here is the gift for you. So it's a hidden URL and it will be operating for a while. So if you go to Keis, KenKeis.com/lit, LIT, wonder how we got that. If you go in there, then and just input your name and email, then we will email a link to download this book, The Quest for Purpose, in an e-format for you. So I'm giving it to you free. If you want to learn more about some of the other solutions here, other as a provider, because we have partnerships with people like Mario where you can use the resources to serve others. We have a network of individuals around the world that globally do it. We're in 13 different languages, or if you want to use it personally. So I'm going to stop here. And I want to thank you for your attention to this. I know I was going fast, but I wanted to really give you a framework. That was my intention, to get you to think about what are some things you can consider to go to the next level. So Mario, what are some questions or thoughts or that you might have or the group has as we go forward?
To all of our guests, if you want to ask some questions, now's the time to do it. Dr. Keis, that was just an amazing presentation, really a lot of information and great stuff that we need to go over some more in depth. So hopefully we can continue to work with you again in the future, but that's just really overwhelming. Great information. Thank you so much for that.
Okay. You're welcome. Well, it's as I was saying in the session, no way you ever would have convinced me, and even in my late 20s, I would be an author. And then it just became a gift. And all of a sudden it was just this accumulation of almost 35 years of work. And right. I just condensed that down into 30 minutes for you.
Wow, impressive. Gotcha. All right, guys, since we don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Dr. Keis, I want to thank you again. That was just amazing. We'll have the video up on our YouTube channel over the weekend. And again, we hope to work with you again on our future weekly webinar series or in-person events. Anything else, Dr. Keis?
Well, I just want to encourage again, if you're curious, if you want to find out more, there's no obligation, just reach out. And my other side that I want to say to everybody is every single person listening, watching, or you're working with has a contribution to make. I mean, there's so much judgment and, everybody says diversity, and I sit on an HR committee on diversity. And my observation is that there's less diversity than there's ever been acceptance of it. Because if your opinion doesn't agree with me, then I can't accept that. And I disagree with that 100%. But what I will say is every single person listening, watching, you matter. You have something to contribute. You have a difference to make. And I don't care if you're the best janitor in the elementary school in the country, or you're traveling the world with thousands of people in an audience. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you are placed to be. I believe that everybody at birth has a calling and assignment, and it's your responsibility to find it. And that if you don't do it, then you have nobody else but yourself to blame or be responsible for. So lean into this, do the work, and you will just be amazed at the results and what's possible and how everybody can live a fulfilling and life of contribution towards others.
Dr. Keis, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. If you're going to stick around for the rest of the day, guys, we do have another presentation at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Dr. Keis, again, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you, Mario.